Hi, my name is Julian. To the woman that broke my heart, I've gone back and forth for months, maybe even longer, debating whether I'd ever write something like this. The internal debate has been an agonizing mirror of the conflict that consumed our last year together, a silent war fought entirely within the confines of my own mind. There were moments when the rage was so physical, I felt the desperate need to scream these words into the void, hoping the sound alone might carry the weight of my pain to you. Then, there were other, quieter moments when silence felt like the only dignified response left to me, a way of preserving what little self-respect remained. I realized that sending this, screaming it or whispering it would ultimately change nothing about the past. The facts are immutable, and your choices are final. I have come to understand that this letter is not truly about you, or about seeking any form of closure from your end. Closure is a myth I bought into for too long, expecting it to be handed to me by the person who opened the wound. Maybe it doesn't matter if you ever read it or not. Perhaps it's better if you don't. The only person who truly needs to hear these words is me, the shattered man who remains. I need to say these things to articulate the depth of the damage, for my own sanity. This writing is my act of surgical self-extraction, a deliberate attempt to cut out the poison you left behind so that I can finally begin the slow, arduous process of healing without needing your permission or participation. I need to talk about the affair, not just the clinical, reductive fact that it happened, which is easy to summarize in a sterile sentence, but what it fundamentally was, what it truly meant, and what it did to the core of my existence. I was there, remember? I was present, living through those months, anchored in the daily, mundane reality of our shared home, sleeping in our marital bed. All the while, you were expertly constructing and meticulously living a second, vibrant, secret life, a betrayal hidden from the man who still loved you completely. I felt the physical coldness in the bed, the sudden, unexplained distance in your eyes, the increasing impatience with my presence. But I rationalized it all, explaining away every red flag with excuses born of my own desperate wish for our marriage to survive. For a long time, in the aftermath and during the terrible, drawn-out process of separation, I didn't fully allow myself to name how much that duality broke me. I tried to focus on logistics, on divorce papers, on dividing material assets and furniture, anything tangible. It felt easier to quantify the material loss than to look directly into the gaping, terrifying chasm of the emotional one. But the truth is, the emotional cost far outweighs the material. It shattered my perception of reality itself, destroying the very foundation of trust upon which my life was built. You didn't just betray me in a single, regrettable moment of weakness, an act that could be dismissed as a momentary slip. You engaged in a calculated, sustained campaign of emotional fraud. Your betrayal was not an accident, it was an undertaking. You made a series of conscious, deliberate choices over months, choices that required planning, secrecy, sustained deception, and a total compartmentalization of your life. This transformed you seemingly overnight into a cold stranger I barely recognized. Each message you sent to him, each time you coordinated the logistics to meet up, each lie you fabricated to cover your absence, these were deliberate, willful decisions. They were decisions that required you to choose his desire over my truth, his company over my commitment, and his approval over our shared history. You didn't simply fall into something by accident, swept away by an overpowering emotion you couldn't control. You actively maintained it day after day. You protected it fiercely, making extraordinary efforts to keep the betrayal hidden. You nurtured something illicit and toxic with him, an intimacy built on shared lies, while systematically distancing yourself from me, building a wall of ice around your heart. You used the energy you should have been investing in healing our marriage to instead fortify the structure of your deceit. And all of this happened while I was still present, still showing up, still loving you with the full force of my confused and utterly exhausted heart. The irony is not lost on me that this sustained deception was occurring while I was grappling with the daily exhaustion of my own chronic pain. I was wrestling with physical limitations and discomfort that were invisible to the outside world, yet dictated the agonizing rhythm of my everyday. The pain was often debilitating, a constant, low-level thrum of agony that sapped my mental energy and patience. Despite that, I was still the one believing that we had something sacred, something worth fighting for, something worth protecting with every ounce of my effort. I was pushing past physical limits just to keep our ship afloat, while you were quietly boring holes beneath the waterline. My pain made me momentarily vulnerable and less available, yes, But it didn't warrant the ultimate destruction you orchestrated. It demanded compassion, not abandonment. I look back at the final weeks before I discovered your betrayal, and the memory is agonizing, sickeningly clear. You had begun to raise concerns about our relationship, citing dissatisfaction, pointing to areas where I was supposedly failing you as a partner. You spoke of distance, lack of spontaneity, and a general lack of emotional fulfillment, all symptoms, I now realize, of your focus being entirely diverted elsewhere. I took those concerns with devastating seriousness. I fought like hell to fix myself, convinced that my own perceived flaws were the root cause of our distance and your unhappiness. I internalized every critique, viewing your complaints as legitimate feedback on my failures. I accepted all the blame you assigned, owned every flaw you pointed out, and made genuine, often desperate, efforts to change the very fabric of who I was. I poured myself into reconciliation, completely unaware that I was reconciling alone, pouring effort into a vessel you had already declared broken. I showed up for every therapy session, my heart wide open, ready to confess my sins and pledge a renewed commitment. I took your words to heart, listening intently to your expressions of dissatisfaction, genuinely believing we were in this together. I carried the crushing emotional weight of our relationship, believing it was mine to fix, the burden of our future resting solely on my shoulders. Meanwhile, while I was tearing myself apart trying to be better, trying to become the perfect husband you claimed you needed, you continued the affair in secret. I was the one under scrutiny. I was the one being dissected in couples counseling, spending hours analyzing my behavior, my tone, my level of emotional availability, believing the scrutiny was necessary for our healing. You were the prosecutor and the witness, and I was the bewildered defendant. I became the emotional punching bag, absorbing critiques and making pledges to improve, promising to be more present, more attentive, more as anything you required. All the while you sat next to me, lying with cold, practiced precision, hiding the vibrant, cruel life you were living outside of that room. It was a performance you gave, an act of supreme malice disguised as mutual introspection, a testament to your emotional dexterity in deception. The image of us sitting there side by side as I apologized for things that were minor flaws inherent in any long-term partnership while you concealed a major act of destruction, is one I will carry forever. It fundamentally changed my understanding of human capacity for calculated cruelty, realizing the depth of the betrayal was far greater than just the infidelity itself. It was psychological warfare. You demanded absolute authenticity and vulnerability from me, forcing me to expose my deepest fears, while offering pure, rehearsed fabrication in return. And then once I did find out about the affair, once the truth finally tore through the elaborate veil of your lies, once the undeniable evidence was presented, you still continued lying. Even with the messages staring you in the face, even with the proof laid out on the kitchen table, you tried to minimize it. You said it was nothing, a brief, meaningless distraction, a moment of weakness, anything but the calculated choice it truly was. You tried to gaslight me, suggesting that my reaction was an overreaction, disproportionate to the small thing that had happened, blaming my own insecurities for the magnitude of my pain. But the messages I read, the concrete, documented evidence you foolishly left for me to find, said otherwise. The words preserved on that screen told a different, undeniable story, a narrative of deep, intimate connection and, most savagely, shared contempt for me. In those messages, you and he were literally laughing about me. That is the detail that truly broke me, that sent the shards of my heart deeper into my chest. It wasn't just the sex, or the intimacy, or the planning, it was the vast mockery. You found me funny, ridiculous, a suitable target for your scorn and shared jokes with your lover. You spoke about me with a casual, brutal dismissiveness that cut deeper than any rage or jealousy could. You said I was just safe, someone you could count on to watch the dogs, a convenient, reliable backdrop for your actual life. I was reduced to a house sitter, a pet minder, a dependable fixture to manage the tedious realities of life, the finances, the chores, the scheduling, while you sneaked off together to experience passion and excitement. That utility, that reduction of my entire identity, my 15 years of devotion, to a mere chore manager and background character, was one of the most painful wounds. It suggested I was never a partner, only a resource, a comfort object to be discarded when you sought true adventure. It stripped away all dignity from my sacrifice and my commitment to our home. You called me weak. You described how free and alive you felt being with him, how he supposedly saw the real you, how the air was cleaner and the colors brighter in his presence. painting a vivid picture of a preferred life. Reading those words, which cataloged my failings and praised his temporary allure, felt like being forced to witness my own public execution, with you, my partner, leading the cheers and confirming my inadequacy. The intimacy of your written words, the shared inside jokes, the vulnerability you offered him. That was the true, unforgivable infidelity, the giving away of your emotional core. And then, even after I read the evidence, after I confronted you with the depth of your deceit and the cruelty of your words, you still tried to manipulate the outcome. You told me the affair was over. You swore you'd cut contact. You pledged to save what was left of us. But your actions showed no genuine, verifiable remorse. True remorse requires actions, not just words. You continued seeing him, maintaining the secret connection, holding onto the lifeline you had established with him, unwilling to fully relinquish the fantasy you had created. The apology was a placeholder, a temporary verbal concession designed to buy you time and protect you from the true, immediate consequences of your choices. It was another layer of deception, a final, cynical attempt to control the narrative and minimize your exposure. I've spent countless, sleepless hours in the dark, replaying every moment of our life together, asking myself with agonizing precision what I could have done differently. I analyzed every argument, every quiet night, every moment of my alleged emotional absence, searching for the fatal error. I looked for the fatal flaw in my devotion, the precise moment I failed to be the husband you needed, the justifiable reason that would explain and rationalize your terrible actions. I searched for a definitive reason, a moment of justifiable failure that would bring structure and meaning to the senseless destruction you wrought. I wanted to find a way to make it my fault, because if it was my fault, I could fix it. If it was your malice, I was powerless. And the truth is, the stark, brutal truth I finally had to accept is that I tried. I made mistakes, yes, because I am human, and our marriage, like any other, wasn't perfect. We had our flaws, our tired routines, our moments of misunderstanding. But I still showed up with love. I still fought for us, even when I was exhausted and in chronic pain. I still believed in you, in the vows we took, in the sanctity of our commitment, and I invested my whole self into that belief. I invested 15 years of my adult life into our union, sacrificing my own dreams and comfort to build a safe, stable life for us both. You simply didn't do the same. You stopped fighting long before you admitted it, choosing an easier, more selfish path, abandoning the commitment that defined me. It seems like you wanted freedom without accountability, demanding the stability of a husband while craving the thrill of a single life. You wanted the excitement of a separate, secret life, but lacked the decency, the courage, or the maturity to end our marriage honestly before starting another relationship. You wanted the thrill of the new while keeping the safety of the old, treating me as an insurance policy against the terrifying uncertainty of your future. And instead of owning your choices, instead of confronting the consequences of your deception, you forced me to carry the entire emotional cost of your betrayal. You let me absorb the blame for the distance your secrets created, allowing me to believe my shortcomings were the source of our demise. It was easier for you to watch me suffer under the weight of false guilt than to bear the consequences of your own actions. You made me doubt my own reality. I questioned my memory, my sanity, my basic goodness as a human being. I wondered if I was truly the horrible, inadequate man you painted me to be in the counseling sessions, if I deserved the cruelty you inflicted. You withheld honesty when I needed it most, allowing me to flounder in a sea of self-doubt while you enjoyed the false clarity of your double life, a moral compass completely askew. You chose your guilt over our truth, prioritizing the protection of your secret over the well-being of the man you were supposed to love, putting your own momentary comfort above my fundamental right to know the truth. That decision, that final choice of self-preservation through deceit, is something I will not soon forget. It is a defining mark on my soul that will forever shape my perception of trust and vulnerability. I am not writing this to punish you, though I know the truth, fully spoken, is a form of punishment that you richly deserve. I am writing it because I need to stop carrying what does not belong to me. The shame, the pain, the betrayal, the guilt, those are the consequences of your decisions, the inevitable fallout of your actions. I need to sever the cord that ties my self-worth to your historical failure. I need to give the burden back to its rightful owner and walk away unencumbered. I still can't understand how you allowed it to go so far, how the fleeting, manipulative fantasy of another man could possibly outweigh the sustained commitment of a lifetime. How could you throw away 15 years of a loving marriage, a life we built brick by brick, through sickness and health, through financial struggle and eventual stability, for a cheap, brief affair that was founded entirely on the basis of a lie? It is a failure of perspective I will never comprehend. I struggle to comprehend how you kept choosing someone else while I was still choosing us, still paying the bills, still trying to plan our next vacation, still believing in the woman I thought I married. How did you become someone capable of such sustained dishonesty and profound cruelty, especially knowing how betrayal and infidelity had affected me in the past, irrevocably scarring my perception of family stability and trust? That dark, seismic transformation of your character remains the most frightening, unsolvable mystery of our divorce. Maybe someday, years from now, when the dust has settled and you have navigated the true, solitary costs of your choices, you will understand that the affair was not just a lapse in judgment. It was a structural failure of character, a deliberate act of relational sabotage. It tore apart something sacred between us, the unconditional trust that underpins an entire life, and something even deeper within me, my belief in my own judgment, my capacity to accurately assess reality, and my fundamental feeling of safety in a partnership. It shattered my ability to feel secure in the world. I am beginning to accept a difficult, profound, and necessary truth, a truth that allows me to finally move. I don't miss the version of you who did this. I don't miss the woman who lied in my face, mocked me behind my back, and prioritized her excitement over my well-being in life. That woman is a stranger to me, a destructive force I am profoundly grateful to be free of, a ghost I must exorcise from my memories. I miss the idea of you, the idealized partner I believed you were for 15 years, loyal, compassionate, honest, and committed. I miss the memory of the early years, the shared laughter, the quiet comfort of our daily routine. But that person, the person I loved, simply doesn't exist anymore. She was an illusion I desperately maintained, a beautiful fiction I clung to, and acknowledging that she is gone is the final, agonizing stage of my grief. I am mourning a person who died long before the affair began. And I know this will be hard for me. The road ahead is long, stretching into an uncertain future, and the emotional scars are deep, still throbbing beneath the surface. I know there will be dark days, when the memories return with crushing force, days when the loneliness is a physical presence in the room. But I am making a solemn vow to myself, an unbreakable pledge I will honor every day of my remaining life, an oath to my own recovery. I will not let your betrayal define my worth. My value as a man, as a partner, and as a human being is not determined by your failure to see it, nor by the cheap contempt you privately held for me. I am a man who was devoted, who showed up, who fought for his marriage until his body physically collapsed from the stress. That is the indelible truth of who I am. I will not allow your deception to rewrite my reality. I know what happened, I know the depths of the manipulation, and I will not let your attempts to minimize or re-narrate the past infect my future understanding of events. My truth is the only anchor I have left, and I will protect it fiercely, guarding it from any attempt at revisionism, and I will not stay silent about what happened just to protect your comfort, your reputation, or your future convenience. Your guilt is yours to carry, and I will not bear the weight of it for you any longer. The truth, spoken clearly and without apology, is the necessary foundation for my healing, and I will speak it when I need to, for myself and for any future partner who deserves honesty. You may have succeeded in breaking my heart, fracturing the core of my trust in the world, but I will be the one to heal it. I am the sole architect of my recovery, and I will build something new, something stronger, something defined not by the pain you inflicted, but by the strength I found in walking away. This letter is the final nail in the coffin of the past, the last word I will ever give to the illusion of our marriage. My life, my truth, and my peace begin now today, without you. The silence that follows the end of this letter is not empty, it is pregnant with possibility. It is the sound of a heart beginning to beat for itself again. It is the sound of freedom,